Welcome. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating explainer based on the work of psychiatrist David R. Hawkins. We're going to be unpacking his totally transformative method for clearing out emotional baggage. It's all about taking a super pragmatic, grounded approach to emotional surrender, and honestly, looking at how letting go of the heavy stuff can just completely reshape our day-to-day lives. Okay, let's dive into this because this right here requires a massive paradigm shift. Most of us go through life just assuming that an endless stream of negative thoughts is what's creating our bad moods. We tell ourselves, man, if I could just stop overthinking, I wouldn't feel so stressed out all the time. But Hawkins proposes the exact opposite. What if it's the underlying unaddressed emotion that's actually the engine? What if that feeling is actively generating thousands of those negative thoughts? When you look at the brain from an evolutionary standpoint, our emotions are a much older, much more primitive and foundational system than our complex intellectual thoughts. To really wrap our heads around this, think of your mind like a giant computer hard drive. In this analogy, your core underlying emotions, things like fear, anger, or heavy grief, those are the main folders. And the thoughts you have bouncing around your head all day, those are the tens of thousands of individual files just stuffed inside those folders. Now, if you try to delete those negative thoughts one by one, file by file, you're going to be at it forever. It's totally exhausting. But if you can just identify and delete the main emotional folder, well, tens of thousands of repetitive, anxious files instantly vanish right along with it. It's quite literally the ultimate hack for clearing up your mental bandwidth. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because unfortunately, most of us never actually delete those emotional folders. Instead, the source material identifies three main and, frankly, highly ineffective ways we try to handle uncomfortable feelings. First up, distraction. The absolute second we feel sad or anxious, what do? We reach for our phones to doom scroll social media, or we grab a drink, or we binge watch TV. Anything to look away. Second, we bury them. We just internalize the feeling, deny it's even happening, and shove it down deep. And third, we share them. We constantly vent our frustrations to absolutely anyone who will listen. Now, the big issue with that second method, burying our emotions deep down, is that it takes a severe, undeniable physical and mental toll. When we pretend a negative feeling doesn't exist, it actually signals to the brain that this feeling is a literal threat. So your body triggers its fight or flight response. Your muscles tense right up, your breathing gets super shallow, and cortisol just floods your system. Over time, living with those buried emotions, it leads to chronic pain, frequent headaches, and long-term mental health struggles like deep-seated anxiety and depression. The emotion doesn't just magically go away. It literally takes up residence in your nervous system. And this brilliantly illustrates the problem with the third method. You'd think talking it out always helps, right? Well, as psychologist Ethan Kross points out in his book Chatter, constantly venting to other people can totally backfire. It leads to something psychologists call co-rumination. Basically, your friends ask you validating questions that inadvertently force you to re-experience the painful memory over and over and over again. This just amplifies your negative self-talk, keeps that emotional folder wide open, and honestly, it can completely wear out your friends and strain your relationships. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Hawkins developed this map of consciousness to help us avoid those traps. It acts just like a stoplight system to quickly gauge your emotional state. Down in the red zone, you've got those really heavy emotions: fear, anger, grief, shame. These completely drain your energy. Then you move up to the yellow or blue zone, which holds emotions like courage, pride, and acceptance. These are transitional states where you finally start reclaiming your stability. And at the top, the green zone features love, peace, reason, and joy. Those are the emotions that uplift you and create massive personal growth. But look, let's be totally realistic for a second. You cannot exist in the green zone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Life happens, traffic happens, deadlines happen. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that red zone emotions are not evil. They act exactly like a check engine warning light on your car's dashboard. When that red light flashes, when you feel a sudden spike of fear or shame, it is just a call to action. It's an indicator that you need to change your reaction. It is definitely not a permanent place you are doomed to stay. So how exactly do we turn off that warning light? Well, this is where we get into the highly actionable core of today's explainer, Hawkins's 5-step letting go technique. Let's walk through a real-world example. Say you are absolutely terrified of missing a major deadline at work. Step 1, recognize the emotion. Simply put a name to it. I am feeling fear. Step 2, sit with it. Actually feel the physical sensation happening in your body. Step 3, ask yourself, can I allow this feeling to just be here without fighting it? Step 4, ask, could I let this go? Just a question of possibility. And finally, step 5, ask, would I let this go? Make that conscious, deliberate choice to release your grip on it. Now,
I want to place a massive spotlight on step 2 for a second, which is simply sitting with the emotion. When we say sit with it, the sources suggest you only need to do this for about 1 to 10 minutes. That is the magic number to remember. 10 minutes max. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. You have to sit with the raw, uncomfortable physical sensation of that emotion without checking your phone, without turning on the TV, and without running away to distract yourself. You just breathe and you let the energy move through you.
It's incredibly important that we contrast this method of radical acceptance with ideas like toxic positivity, or even some of those rigid interpretations of the law of attraction. Toxic positivity tells you to just completely ignore negative thoughts and only focus on good vibes. But psychologically speaking, trying not to think about a negative emotion is like telling someone, whatever you do, do not think of a pink elephant. And what happens? You immediately think of a pink elephant. Radical acceptance, on the exact opposite hand, says, okay, I see the pink elephant, I'm going to let it stand right there in the room with me, and eventually it will just wander away on its own. So the crucial point is understanding the fundamental difference between simplicity and ease. These 5 steps, recognize, sit, allow, could I, would I, they are incredibly simple. You could literally write them on a tiny sticky note. But simple does not mean easy. Sitting with a raw, painful emotion like grief or deep shame, that is intensely challenging. It's honestly a lot like running a marathon. The instructions for running a marathon are very simple. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other for 26 miles. Simple? Yes, absolutely. Easy? No way. Your brain is going to resist this process, and you need to know that resistance is completely normal. All right, as focused learners, it is absolutely vital that we maintain our objectivity here. Let's pivot for a second and take an impartial look at the source material as a whole. Hawkins' book weaves together some absolutely brilliant, pragmatic psychological tools with some concepts that definitely step outside the bounds of conventional science. We want to clearly distinguish where this method perfectly aligns with modern, evidence-based psychology and where it ventures into more controversial territory so you can make the most informed use of this framework. So on the evidence-based side of the aisle, the core letting go technique is phenomenal and strongly validated by both established psychology and ancient philosophy. Sitting with an emotion and radically accepting it is actually a foundational pillar of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which is widely used by clinical psychologists today. Plus, this practice perfectly mirrors the Buddhist principles of non-attachment, which is basically observing your feelings without clinging to them, as well as the Stoic practice of courageously accepting the things you cannot control. The utility of this core technique is incredibly well documented. Conversely, we also must report on the elements of Hawkins' work that do draw scientific skepticism. The source material claims that absolute truth can be verified through a practice called kinesiological muscle testing. It assigns exact vibrational frequencies from 0 to 1,000 for specific emotions, and it suggests that severe physical diseases can be cured entirely by releasing emotional blockages. Established science does not currently support these specific claims. And look, as always, we aren't taking sides here. We are simply laying out exactly what the text says versus what empirical science currently supports, just to give you the full comprehensive picture. But here is the beauty of it. By separating the highly effective behavioral tools from the controversial claims, you are empowered to take what truly works for you. You can utilize this incredibly valuable mindfulness tool of radical acceptance while totally leaving the unproven elements behind if you choose to. Because the ultimate transformative lesson here is a profound paradox. True emotional control doesn't come from forcing your feelings down, fighting them, or ignoring them. True control is actually achieved through surrendering to the feeling and just letting it pass. Which brings us to our final thought. Right now, today, in your own life, what is the emotional folder you are refusing to delete? What story, what fear, or what past grievance are you gripping onto so tightly that it's generating thousands of stressful files in your mind? I highly encourage you to try taking just 10 minutes today, sit without your phone, and apply these 5 steps. I think you'll be amazed at how much lighter you feel. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next explainer.